Parker? I can't
There we
hear.
go.
Are you muted?
Wait, am I?
Now you're okay.
Okay, sorry, I didn't connect to the audio yet.
You're fine. All right.
So am I in so far? Oh,
You're
somebody
in.
else joined?
Yeah, there's more people coming in.
Hello.
DVO?
Oh, no, that was fast.
Where is DVO?
Me. Sorry, that's what we have to all.
Oh, I used to have a student named Daniel Van Orsky, and I always called him DVO. I thought you were him.
No.
So, David, did you figure out how to do PowerPoint? Did you see my note back to you?
Yeah, I still haven't gotten around to doing that, but yeah,
Okay.
I saw your note.
But you think you can figure it out?
Yeah, sorry I wasn't here for the thing last week. I had a bit of trouble finding it.
Okay. All right, I'm just letting people in for now.
So was anybody else hear the news that we're not going back?
Yeah, everyone did.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Simulator. See Job Simulator.
Got it.
Good morning, Miss
Hey,
Harris.
David. Good morning.
Now where's your video?
David, Lara, Logan. Okay, Eddie.
Hello. Hello.
Who is Salva?
Gavin.
That's Gavin?
And Samantha.
And Samantha, good.
Hi, Cassie. Quit, Laura.
Josh.
Samantha. You're not in it anyway.
Eddie, what is going on behind you?
Yeah.
A video.
What is it, though?
Peace and Tranquility. It's one of the videos from the OST of A Hat in Time.
Do you
Really
guys
good.
know, I'm sorry, Eddie. Do you guys know
Really
in
good
Zoom
game.
that you can change your view so that whoever's talking gets a full screen?
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah, if you just right click on the person you want to do and then click pin video, it'll show them in full screen.
Or you can go to the top of your screen and you see where it says speaker view.
Yeah, but
You
then
hover over it?
it's gonna show the person who's speaking.
That's what I'm saying. Like every time the speaker changes, your screen will go full screen with that person. Or you can leave it.
I prefer to have everybody at once.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, just giving you options.
Miss Harris.
Yes, Lara.
So, what are the options?
For what?
The Zoom screen.
Oh, okay. Hover your cursor at the top right of your screen, and do you see where it says speaker view or gallery view? I don't know what your screen says.
Gallery.
Do you see at the top right? If you hover, it'll say speaker view or gallery view.
Gallery.
Who's she talking to?
I'm talking to Lara.
Oh, okay, not Gavin.
I see. Gallery. View.
Christian. Who did I just let in before Christian? I didn't catch the name. Savannah? Yes, it was Savannah. Okay. Okay. All right. Everybody caught up with the reading for today?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yep.
So,
And what's going on is sounding just about as good as a bunch of the oldest being 12-year-old boys stuck on an island would be going.
right? I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. So,
At least there's no
Where's
girls
the
with them,
Wi-Fi
'cause-
signal?
'cause boys with girls, that does not go well together.
no, that would change everything, right?
Yes, that would
and
be
where's
like
the
an
Wi-Fi
adult novel.
signal? Well, yeah, this is
It's
they are
an
really
island.
suffering. Okay, it's an island in the 1940s. All
Wi-Fi
right,
didn't even exist back then.
so I'm going to start going over some things.
Anna.
So when we're in the beginning, we are chapter 5 and 6 for today. So chapter 5, actually, let me change my view. I would like to have my view so that I think if I mute everybody, that'll fix what I'm experiencing. Now, why am I only seeing Eddie now? Is that Gavin, Angelina? Okay. All right, everybody's unmuted again. I don't know why, but anyway. Okay, so we start off in chapter 5, and we have Ralph, who has, remember they were just up at the fire, and he called a meeting. I think that's
Yeah.
where they were, right?
Mhm.
He stormed off and he called a meeting. So the meeting is
Yeah.
taking place. And in the meeting, Ralph is mad, and he starts talking about how all these things that they all said they were going to do are
Never
not
get done.
getting done. Things like nobody's bringing the water every day. Only a couple boys help build the
12-year-old
huts.
boys. What does he expect?
Okay, just let me get my stuff out, okay? They're going to the bathroom wherever they want. They had made a designated area to keep it clean, and now they're just ignoring that and going to the bathroom wherever they want. Well, that can't be good. Let me let the next person in. That seems like it is Ben. Hey, Ben. Okay. So, and the signal fire isn't being watched properly. So they are definitely going downhill with their civilization, right?
Mhm.
So Jack says a couple things. He says, one, we're not going to have any more cooking fires. We're going to only have the signal fire. So when you want to cook something, you have to go up to the signal fire. And he also says, we have to stop being afraid of beasties, right? They're worried. They're all worried about this monster on the island, or the little ones call it a beastie. They have to stop being afraid of that. Well, at this
Sounds
point,
like some kids would call it.
who grabs the conch from him so he can speak?
Jack.
Jack grabs the conch shell, and he starts speaking, and he says, there are no big animals here. He says that he would know because he's a hunter and he's out there and he would have seen signs of it. So he says there's no big animals. And he also says everybody gets scared. You just have to deal with it, basically.
Yeah.
And then a little one speaks up and he says that he saw the beast just last night. And he says he thinks it may come up from the ocean. And nobody had thought of this before. And so now they have this whole new feeling of fear, like, oh, if it's not living on the island, yeah, it could be living in the ocean and coming up at night. So now everybody is newly scared about the idea of this beast on the island.
Oh, great. Now we got more fear.
That's more fear. And fear is a very important theme here. Fear informs a lot of what is going on, a lot of the actions and decisions that people make.
It sounds like The Thing. You know that movie, The Thing?
Yeah.
Where they're paranoid.
Yeah.
At least in that movie, they're actually like thinking smarter.
So the meeting starts
You'd be
to become.
surprised. Most horror movies aren't. Most horror movies, people make dumb decisions, and that's why it starts.
We can talk about horror movies because that would be actually fun to talk about. So let me get through this, and then if you want to go back to that, I'm all for it. So
All right, gotcha.
the meeting starts to become pretty chaotic because fear gets injected into it. And Jack says something that may have just seemed like Jack running his mouth, but it's actually extremely important what he says. He says, if there is a beast, he and his hunters will track it down and kill it. So why do you think that's an important thing that Jack just said? Now, I want you to think about the chess match of power that's going on. How is that a great chess move, basically?
He wants to isolate and make his power known.
Makes it look like he's going to be the big old hero.
That they really need him, that he's the most important person because he can save them from this huge fear that they all have, right?
I have a feeling that it's just going to be an adult that actually wound up on the island.
Yeah, we'll see. So Jack starts tormenting Piggy,
Just being like, well,
and Jack starts tormenting Piggy as usual at every meeting, and he takes off, and most of the boys follow Jack. How does that bode for Ralph, do you think?
Oh yeah, that makes me furious.
Probably not very well.
It's not good. That's to the reader, we can see a major tip right now in how things are going. So the three that are left behind are Ralph, Piggy, and Simon. And I think it's Piggy. Piggy really thinks that at this point Jack needs to blow that conch shell and call everybody back to a meeting. But did I say Jack? I meant Ralph. But Ralph is afraid to do that. Why do you think he's afraid of calling a meeting?
Because he thinks it's going to alert the beast.
No, not because he thinks it'll alert the beast. Who said something else?
Just make Jack look better.
It's hard for me to, like when you guys talk, I can't tell what you're saying. So I'm just going to tell you. So he is afraid that if he calls a meeting right now, nobody's going to come to it. And if that happens, what kind of a message is that to Ralph?
It's not about the shell anymore. It's about Jack's leadership.
Exactly. It's all over for Ralph. So it's like he doesn't want to confront that. So he doesn't even want to risk calling a meeting that everybody won't come to. But then he also tells Piggy and Simon that he thinks maybe he should step down as leader, but they disagree with that and they encourage him to keep the position that he has with whatever value it has at this point. I don't even know anymore, right?
I don't think it has any value.
It doesn't seem to have much value, but we'll see how as we go forward. So in this chapter, chapter 5, the whole fear theme, the whole thing about fear really explodes and becomes forefront in the action of what's going on. Fear takes center stage. And because Jack is so manipulative and wants power so much, he found a way to use that fear to advance his power. And he did that by saying, listen, I don't believe there's a beast, but if there is, we're going to get it and kill it. So that's got to feel good to the people who are really scared and truly believe there is a beast, to think that there's this strong, capable person who's got this, right? So people are going to love that, as we saw, because they left with him. Okay, so what he's doing is, now I'm going to tie this into regular society that we live in, how people who are in power will use fear to control the masses of people. We are part of the masses, and the news uses fear to make us tune in, to make us feel like we need to know what's going on. I mean, fear is something that people in power will use to affect the masses of people
against each other.
Control the masses of people, yeah. So we have a parallel there between what's going on the island and then what goes on in real life. Then we go to chapter 6. And chapter 6 opens with all the boys sleeping. It's nighttime. And I personally found this chapter really challenging to understand. There's something about the writing in it that was just confusing. And so I had to go over it a few times and I had to read other things to make sure I was clear on it. So while the boys are sleeping, what is going on overhead? Did anybody understand that?
A plane got shot down.
Yeah, there's actually a battle going on, like far up in the sky. They can't hear it because it's too far off, but there's lights and there's explosions, but they're all sleeping and they don't hear it.
Someone's just celebrating.
Who are the two people that should have heard it or seen it? It should have been the two boys, in this case it was Sam and Eric, who were on fire duty, but they fell asleep, so they didn't see it. So yes, as I think David said, somebody said, a plane gets shot and down comes a parachutist out of the plane, but he is dead. He's dead, and he lands on the island, and he lands in such a kind of a caught on the rocks way that he's like, the parachute is blowing and his head is bobbing back and forth, and Sam and Eric wake up for whatever reason, I can't remember why. And just because they wake up and they start to tend the fire, and they can see this, what we know is a dead parachutist caught on the rocks, but they don't know. And what do they think it is?
The beast.
Beast from the sky.
They have seen the monster. They don't know it's from the sky. They don't know that anything came down because they woke up after it had landed. So they're seeing these shadows and this weird movement and this head moving, and it's dark, so they can barely see it very well, but they have seen the beast. They now have proof that there is a beast on the island. So they think. All right, I'm letting Sierra Moyer in. Hey, Sierra. Okay, so of course they run down to the beach to tell everybody that they have seen the beast and let everybody know that it's real. And there's a meeting called, and then it's decided that these boys are they're going to go searching for it. They're going to go hunting for the beast. But everybody goes except, of course, who stays behind as usual?
Piggy.
Piggy stays behind with all the little kids, and remember how we talked last week how all the little kids are kind of faceless and they represent the masses of people in a society. Yeah. All right, so off they go. They are armed with wooden spears and they're going to search to find this beast.
Oh yeah, like if this was an actual beast, like that's gonna do anything to it.
It's pretty brave of them, actually. If they really think it's a real thing now, I think that's awfully brave that they're setting off with their wooden spears to try to confront it and take care of it.
Well, since they killed that pig, they have gotten kind of egotistical when it comes to...
You're right. You are very right about that. Jack especially, of course. So,
I'm just thinking, like, wooden spears aren't going to do much.
Yeah. So when they take off, but that's all they have. I mean, that's the best they can do. So when they take off, Ralph actually lets Jack lead the group of boys off into what they're doing. So that one little thing right there, Ralph letting Jack lead the group,
I think he did that on purpose.
Means something. Well, I guess he did that on purpose.
Why do you think? He's lost hope.
Yeah, he definitely seems like he's lost hope. He's not the old Ralph, is he?
Nope.
All right. So they go looking and they end up reaching a part of the island that they have not been to before. And there's like this, and this again was hard for me to picture just the way it was written, but there's this thin walk, they're near the water of the ocean, there's this thin walkway that leads to a hill, and the hill is dotted with all these small caves. And then there's also these giant pieces of granite, kind of pink tinted granite, and they call the biggest section of granite a castle, right? Do you remember reading about calling something the castle?
Yeah.
So the boys are too afraid.
Like Minecraft.
Yeah, the boys are too afraid to investigate this area. This is just too much for them. Except Ralph says, "I will go." Ralph does it, and he says he will go alone. And he's scared, but he goes off and he's away from everyone. And once he gets away from everyone, he feels much braver. He doesn't feel as fearful when he's on his own handling this. So he's kind of edging his way along a ledge, and who joins him on this ledge? Did anybody pick up on that? Or who do you think it might be? Wow, I stumped you.
It's what people say.
Can't tell if it's probably Simon or Piggy.
Nope, it's Jack. Jack joins him. Jack joins him. Yeah. So let's see, where am I? Yeah, okay, so yes. So Jack says, "I wasn't going to let you do this alone," and they keep moving on together, and they're by the caves, and they explore this whole area only to find that there is no beast. All right, and those two, Jack and Ralph, in this section of the book, are actually getting along. Hold on, I'm letting in Caleb. Wasn't Caleb already in? Hey, Cole. Is Cole Smith here?
Oh.
No? Okay. I think Caleb was in and then he got out. Okay, anyway. So these two are getting along, which is not normal for them, of course. And then when they... Oh, and when they're up there, after they've determined that it's safe and there's no beast, they see these rocks, and they see this gigantic rock that's kind of perched near the edge of the cliff. And I think it's Ralph that says something like, if we had an enemy down there, we could just take a palm trunk and lever this rock and push it down and destroy whoever was down there. And there's a bunch of rocks like that. So
that's foreshadowing.
Oh, maybe it is foreshadowing. It sounds like it really sounds like it should.
I don't know how the book ends, but it definitely sounds like foreshadowing.
Definitely sounds like foreshadowing. I totally agree. All right, so they go run back to the boys. They tell the boys that it's safe. There's no beastie, and then all the boys run over to the area where Jack and Ralph just were, and they start exploring everything. And what do? They all start taking those rocks and the ones that they can, pushing them over the cliff and causing all this chaos and destruction below. Obviously, there's no enemy down there, but they're still being boys and doing destructive things, right?
What? Hey, what's that supposed to mean?
Is this a surprise to anyone? I mean, typically,
I know,
boys,
but you made it sound like us boys are very destructive.
I'm saying that it is a trait that you see a lot in boys. Not all boys, but it's something that you do see in boys, and especially when whoa, what is that, people? Especially
Yeah, that's what I was.
When you're in a situation like they're in, where there's no adults, there's nobody trying to keep things orderly, you know, except for other kids.
Okay, I'll let Barbara know.
Who is that?
Who's Barbara?
Somebody needs to mute themselves if they hear that in the background of their house, please.
What? Man, that's not mine.
Right. If it's somebody in your house that's on the phone, you need to mute yourself so we can't hear that.
Oh, well, that's not me at all.
That's not
My
me.
house is quiet.
Yeah, mine is too.
All right.
Wait, whose is
So
it?
the boys are throwing the rocks into the sea, toppling these rocks into the sea. Ralph gets mad. Ralph is always getting mad. And he tells
Well, I
them,
would be too.
yeah,
That's valuable ammo.
tells them they need to go and start the signal fire again. And the boys leave, but they're not happy about it. Everybody's kind of getting irritated with Ralph at this point. And so we can see as the reader that Ralph is more and more losing control of the group, and Jack is gaining control of the group. And one thing that Jack does, another chess move that Jack makes in this chapter, is he asks Ralph in front of all the other boys if he, Ralph, is scared. Why was that a good chess move on Jack's part?
Because it's hard. It's going to be hard to answer
that.
To lie, because it's going to be obvious that the dude is scared out of his.
Yeah, I mean, even though he was brave and he went forward and did the search, you know, on his own until Jack got there. But just Jack asking that in front of all the other boys, you're right. What's the right answer for that one? If you say, yeah, I'm scared, boy, does that lower you and weaken you in their eyes. And if you say, I'm not scared, I don't know. They kind of know that Ralph looks at things differently. So is he going to come across as a liar? That was just a really good move on Jack's part.
That was cheap, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That was cheap.
So in this chapter,
that's a low. Can we agree that's a low blow?
We agree. So in this chapter, remember how it started off with the air battle going on overhead? We are reminded of what is going on in the outside world while these boys are trapped on this island. And what war is going on?
World War II.
World War II is going on. World War II is going on. And so just as our story is exploring civilization versus savagery, I think that the author is tying that in to what's going on back in the real world and what went on in real life. And when World War II was going on, it really was a struggle between savagery and civilization. So do you see that parallel there that the author did, tying what the boys are going through into what was going on in the world at that time? In both places, the island and back in the real world, the desire for violence and power were overwhelming the desire for order and peace. That was happening in the world. I mean, remember, this is the time when Hitler was in power, and look what the crazy things he was doing. That wasn't very civilized, obviously.
I think he had the
power
right.
hungry.
Well, I feel like he had the right idea to make Germany great again. He just did it the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everybody wants their country to be great, but he definitely picked an odd way of doing it.
Because I mean, I'll agree, like they got treated unfairly in Treaty of Versailles, but the way he went about it was kind of uncool.
All right, so let me that's the synopsis of everything, and then we talked, kind of analyzed it. But now I want to ask a couple of questions. So thinking about chapter 5. Remember when Ralph in chapter 5 in the meeting was saying, all right, guys, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not getting water. You're not going to the bathroom in the right place. You're not helping build things. You're not keeping the fire going. Why are those things important to Ralph?
Mostly because it represents how things should be and
order.
the rules Together.
Represent order, represent civilization, represent things moving along well instead of a bunch of chaos. Correct. Very good.
To have order, you must have chaos, though.
And then when they're in that meeting, Simon, and remember who Simon is. Simon is the boy who's kind of quiet. He went off by himself in an earlier chapter, and he found that section in the jungle, and he's very meditative, and he's very connected to nature, and he's not typically a civilization versus savagery guy. Do you remember Simon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Simon says something in chapter 5 that's important when they're talking about the beast and the fear. He says, and he says it reluctantly. He doesn't stand up and state it. He's kind of quiet, and he says, maybe the beast is only us. That's a little cryptic. What could he mean by that? Maybe the beast is only us.
But the chaos itself has manifested into them and has made them turn into the beast.
Wow, Parker, fantastic. Yeah, very insightful. Yeah.
That's what I think sometimes. Like, there's no beast in this world other than us.
And
I mean,
the only thing to run away from.
Think about it this way.
Is unfortunately ourselves.
Very good, guys. Very good.
We take over whatever land we want. We even treat people who we think are different less.
Right. So maybe he's saying that human nature is what is to be feared, because look what's being brought out of these boys in this situation. Look at their nature that's being brought out. And then when in chapter 6, after Sam and Eric see the beast, the dead parachutist, and they run back and tell everybody, they're sure it's a beast, right? How they describe the beast, what does that tell us about human psychology? What has happened to Sam and Eric? Why were they so convinced that was an actual beast? The dead parachutist.
Paranoid.
They heard it enough. Hitler actually said, if you tell a lie, a big enough lie, and you tell it often enough times, it becomes the truth.
That's a great observation. So yeah, they keep hearing it over and over. They're scared anyway. So when you're scared, I don't think you think as clearly as you should. And so psychologically, now they're convinced, even though what they saw is not a beast, they're convinced it is. And why do you think Ralph, who leads who takes off on his own to go looking for it along that ledge and in that section of the island, why do you think that he really doesn't expect to find a beast?
Because he knows that there's not a beast.
Yeah, he knows that there is no beast there. Yeah.
Because he's not stupid.
Right. Ralph is a certain kind of thinker. That's correct. All right, for next week, what do we have? We have 7 and 8, so make sure you're prepared for that. Now, before we hang up, well, first of all, any questions about the book or comments? Because I want to say, I want to go in a different direction. Okay, so you guys have learned, do I have anybody in here right now that's in first period, my first period class, or is everybody in other periods? Okay.
I'm in period 5.
Fantastic. So first period is not doing propaganda. You know how you're doing all the propaganda stuff this year? First period isn't.
Yes.
But they are reading Lord of the Flies, so I didn't want to leave them out of this. But in the propaganda, so earlier in the year we learned things like bandwagon, glittering generalities, using fear, like in print ads to manipulate a bandwagon. Or did I say bandwagon? Yeah, I think I did. All of those. Now, this week, you've learned 2 other things. One, you've learned about rhetoric, ethos, pathos, and logos. You've learned about those 3 things. And you've done a worksheet on them. And I know that ethos and logos are a little close. I mean, I think people get those confused. Sometimes pathos, the one that's about emotion, seems to be more clear-cut. But ethos and logos can be confusing. How did you guys do with understanding the rhetoric? Parker, what are you doing? Are you with me, Parker? Parker, you are muted.
No, I muted myself because I had to quickly tell.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Couldn't call.
All right, thank you for doing that. Okay, so You have to understand ethos, logos, and pathos. And when you do the rhetoric project, the PowerPoint project, where you're picking a charity, and now you're going to convince everyone who's looking at your PowerPoint to donate to this charity that you've chosen, you have to use all three of those rhetoric techniques. You have to appeal to people's logic. You have to have statistics and facts and science. You have to appeal to ethos, which is the ethics of the people running the charity. You have to make the people running your charity, you have to show them in a great light so that we think, wow, they are honest and they're responsible and they know what they're doing. So you have to show the people running your charity in a good light. That's ethos. You have to show statistics about what they're doing and logic, logos, and you have to appeal to emotion. So that's the pathos part of it. So make sure you have all three of those in there. And it's best to label your slide ethos, pathos, and logos, where you have you're backing up those things. You guys know what I mean by that? Everybody following that? Just let me know if you have any questions as you're working on it. Yes.
I do. My hand's raised.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is actually kind of a question for the entire class. What charity are you guys doing?
I feel like Feeding America for me.
Feeding America. Okay, that's a good one. What else?
Eating? I said feeding.
I said feeding. I said feeding.
I thought you said eating. I thought you said eating.
Feeding America.
I was like, wait.
It's not recommended.
No, we're not having any cannibal charities.
Yeah, cannibalism.
No cannibalism charities. All right, so Parker, did you pick a charity yet?
Actually, no. I'm having a hard time figuring out if it should be just a regular coronavirus fund or another type of charity or maybe even an animal charity. I have no idea.
Okay. Well, you guys have, it's not due until next week, so you have a little
I know. It's not due
until
next Thursday, so I know I have a bit of time on it.
I picked one is easy.
What is yours, Josh?
Raise Baseball Foundation.
What is it?
The Raise Baseball Foundation.
What do they do?
I can look it up, but I know it's a charity.
That's good. That would be a fun one for you to do then. And then today you have a new thing about propaganda. This is the last thing that you're going to learn about propaganda, and this is the logical fallacies.
My charity is me.
Hold on. And logical fallacies, which you're going to learn about today, are things that people do in arguments that are mistakes, ways that people argue that weaken their argument. So
holes in the argument.
You'll have to read that. You'll have to understand the lesson closely so that you know what's going on with that. And again, let me know if you don't understand, if you have questions. But I think I made it pretty clear for you, and there's a worksheet that goes along with it. But those are the three aspects of propaganda: the bandwagon, the print ad, the way that they manipulate us, the rhetoric, the logos, ethos, pathos, and the logical fallacies, which is the argument thing. So
I know the best version of propaganda, Uncle Sam.
That's definitely a version of propaganda. That's a good one.
That's one of the most iconic ones that I know.
All right, so that's all I have. Does anybody want to talk about horror movies at the end here?
Well, the right one.
Honestly, I feel like I honestly feel like it's kind of relating to this movie because it's kind of like unknown, and in the end, it kind of dissolves into chaos because
I like mine to be more existential. Like, for example, there's a couple of types, like the fear of not being remembered, the fear that danger could be literally anywhere. It could be at your neighbor. Your neighbor could be dangerous. Dog could be dangerous. Anything is a possibility, and that should, as much as cool as that is, it could scare you. And you want to harness that.
That's true. Eddie, are you still on? Did you want to say something? You're kind of interested in talking about horror movies. You got any comments?
Not really.
Okay.
I do like to say though that if you're in a horror movie, you make dumb decisions. It's what you do.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of it, isn't it?
3 rules to surviving horror movies. Never drink, always be a virgin, and never say I'll be right back. That's the way to survive.
Okay, thank you, David Overholt.
I just said I'd be right back.
You, Sierra, are you asking me a question?
Well then, Eddie's screwed.
All right, let me listen to Sierra. Go ahead.
Are these meetings on Friday? Like, I know we have to come, but like if we miss one, is that like points off? Because I know last Friday I was busy and I couldn't
It's
get it on
okay.
my
I mean,
phone.
it's okay if that happens sometimes. You just, I feel like, and that's why I post the video of the meeting afterwards, so that if you did miss it, you can just watch the video of it. So you can still hear the book discussion, so you can understand what's going on, okay? Does that work?
Yeah.
So make sure you watch it if you do miss it. All right, anybody else have anything they want to say? No?
I don't think so.
Yes, my charity is me.
Okay. All right, people. I will talk to you next week then.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.